Godot 4.2 is out with another treasure trove of fixes, improvements, and new features. The team stayed true to their pledge of focusing on stability, performance, and polish with an update that has something for everyone. Here are some highlights before we dive into the full breakdown. You can now flip and rotate tiles in tile maps, which is super practical for large maps. You ask for it, you got it. 2D Glow with 2D HDR rendering is back. The low-end compatibility renderer got 3D shadows, and you can now use C++ for game scripting much more easily with GDExtension hot reloading. We'll take a look at these features and many more improvements that just came out with Godot 4.2. This video is sponsored by all the new and experienced developers who have bought GDQuest courses to learn how to make games with Godot. Stick around till the end for a special Godot 4.2 coupon you can use for a limited time only to pre-order your Godot 4 course at 50% below launch price. With Godot 4.2 considerably more stable, as you'll find out in a minute, we are happy to announce the rollout of our Godot 4 courses in early access starting January 30, 2024. You will be able to access them directly on GD School, our brand new learning platform. We will start with our foundational courses, Learn 2D and 3D Game Dev from Zero with Godot 4, followed by our popular interactive cookbook of game mechanics, Node Essentials, Godot 4 edition. Release timeline in the description. Throughout early access, you'll be able to get each new module as soon as we release it rather than wait for the complete course to be launched in the full version at full price. Back to what's new in Godot 4.2. I really respect how much focus the Godot team and contributors put towards greater stability in 4.2. Once again, they fixed as many high-priority bugs as possible. In fact, a great aspect of the program is that, so far, every point release works more reliably than the previous one. It sounds obvious, but it's really not always the case with software releases. The willingness of Godot devs to rewrite and simplify entire systems is impressive. Input management is getting lots of love to ensure that the detection of the mouse entering and leaving viewports and other pieces of user interface is as predictable as possible on every platform. This is no small feat, as each platform has its own limitations and quirks to work around. Godot has a built-in drag-and-drop system, and this work is a necessary foundation to support smooth drag-and-drop across windows and nested viewports moving forward. The animation system got unified under the hood. In the Add Node dialog, you can see a new grayed-out Animation Mixer node as a parent of both Animation Player and Animation Tree. This rewrite addresses some animation blending issues and streamlines behavior that was slightly different between the two nodes. This release also brings better support for older devices on macOS and Windows with the addition of the Angle rendering driver. This driver makes the compatibility rendering engine work on macOS, where Apple decided to not support the free and open source rendering technology OpenGL anymore. On Windows, it makes Godot 4 games run on a greater number of integrated Intel GPUs. Finally, this update improves the stability of scene and resource files, so you will get less changes of resource IDs in your version control systems. Let's talk about rendering improvements that benefit both 2D and 3D. The new forced integer scaling rendering mode ensures that 2D and 3D pixelated games always scale cleanly. As you scale a pixel art game up, the image can get stretched to fit the screen, slightly deforming shapes. This new setting makes it much easier to preserve a perfect aspect ratio across all kinds of displays. To turn on integer scaling mode, go to Project, Project Settings, Window, and you'll find a new scale mode setting on the right. Godot already supported AMD's FSR1 scaling technology. It improves performance by rendering the game at a lower resolution and using a unique algorithm to upscale and sharpen the image. As promised earlier this year, Godot 4.2 adds support for FSR 2.2, which offers much better visual quality. You can now generate texture images using compute shaders, which enables a whole range of new applications like simulating water on the graphics card in real time. Compute shaders are programs that allow you to run some logic on your graphics card much faster than on a regular processor. Sebastian Laga showcased 3D mesh generation with compute shaders in his last Q&A video. The next improvement is a cherry on the cake for me. Particles got some new features that allow us to create more visual effects more intuitively. You can now animate the velocity of particles over their lifetime, inherit a projectile's velocity, and enjoy an inspector that's been redesigned in collaboration with experienced VFX artists to make the process more intuitive. On the 2D side, you can now flip and rotate tiles in tile maps. This is not limited to single tiles, it also works with patterns, making this already powerful level editing toolkit much more versatile. The tilemap editor also got lots of small improvements based on your feedback, like the ability to expand the polygon shape editor. Beyond tilemaps, you can now automatically close outlines drawn with Line2D nodes, so you don't need to fiddle with adding one last point in the right place anymore. Video playback can now loop with the Video Stream Player node. This is exactly what we needed to complete our interactive Godot Tours learning technology, so thank you so much for that. The navigation system now supports baking navigation maps in 2D, with support for both regular collision shapes and tile maps. This allows you to recalculate where AIs can move dynamically at runtime so they can adapt to changing level layouts. It also saves you a great deal of time when designing levels that require AI navigation. And you'll be happy to find HDR rendering for 2D in the Forward Plus rendering engine. It gives you potentially higher quality color mixing and enables post-processing effects like the 2D glow. To turn on 2D HDR rendering, go to Project, Project Settings, Viewport, and enable the checkbox next to HDR 2D. In 3D, besides performance improvements, which we'll cover in a moment, there were welcome improvements to the asset pipeline. When you import the 3D mesh into Godot, you can just drag and drop it as any other scene to use it. But what if you want to extract animations or set physics settings on some asset? For that, you double-click on the file, which brings up the 3D import window. There, you can select each imported component and tweak their settings. In Godot 4.2, you will find new physics and shadow settings and a tool to preview imported animations. Godot 4 has 3 rendering engines to offer you different performance, compatibility, and quality trade-offs. The Forward Plus and mobile engines are for modern computers, consoles, and mobile devices. They support real-time global illumination, among other features. The third rendering engine, named Compatibility, offers support for older hardware. It worked well for 2D already, and in Godot 4.2, it got 3D shadows. There's always work going into making various parts of the engine run faster. As with every release, Godot 4.2 got its lot of improvements on the performance front. Navigation mesh baking is now multi-threaded, which greatly improves the speed of changing navigation surfaces at runtime. This release notably addresses stutters that could occur when 3D navigation regions would update dynamically in the game. Tile maps got much faster thanks to an internal rewrite of tile map rendering. Isometric games will benefit from the greatly improved performance of Y sorting. Both the drawing and internal updates of tiles got greatly optimized, which makes updating large maps up to several times faster. And thanks to this rewrite, the system also now performs much better when doing procedural generation and individually changing tiles in scripts. With the Forward Plus rendering engine, shader compilation with standard materials is much faster when you don't use extended reality or advanced material properties. The engine will now selectively compile the features you use in standard materials. This makes loading relevant scenes up to 3 times faster. Rendering on mobile devices can get up to 10% faster and consume less battery thanks to work done on data compression. Many games use light maps to pre-calculate lighting and shadows. Light maps offer outstanding performance and appealing results, but make lighting completely static. It's a staple when making games for lower-end devices and to offer low-performance render settings for your games. Light maps now render much faster thanks to the integration of a new denoiser based on compute shaders. Denoisers greatly reduce calculation times by taking relatively low-quality, noisy pre-calculated lights and shadows and removing the noise. You can still use the denoiser of Godot 4.1, OIDN, in your project settings. Dynamic GDScript code got up to 20% faster. It now assumes that a given line of code operates over the same value types and uses an optimized code path for that type. This makes code that operates on constantly changing value types a bit slower as a result, but it's a net win overall. Note that this optimization doesn't affect strongly typed GDScript code, which will still run faster. Extended Reality, or XR, now supports foveated rendering in the compatibility rendering engine on Android. Foveated rendering is a performance optimization that some VR devices offer. It consists of rendering the game at a higher resolution where the player is looking and using a lower resolution elsewhere, as our eyes can't really see the difference. Godot 4.2 includes several editor improvements to help you work faster and more intuitively. The script editor in Godot 4.2 now supports foldable regions, making it easier to organize and read through your code. To create a fold region, select some code, right-click, and select Create Code Region. You can also press Alt-R on your keyboard. Scripts also highlight popular keywords like to-do and fix-me in code comments. In case you didn't know, the 3D viewport offers a Blender-like transform mode to quickly move, scale, and rotate selected objects. When using this mode, the mouse now wraps around the viewport, making it much easier to move things around. You can also now type numbers for precise transforms. This mode has no shortcuts assigned by default, so if you want to mimic Blender's shortcuts, go to Editor, Editor Settings, Shortcuts, and search for Begin. In version 4.1, resizing a CSG mesh or a collision shape in 3D changes the shape's extents and resizes on both sides. Now, the editor lets you extend the shape on a single side, which is more intuitive. Godot has an amazing built-in technical reference that you can search anytime by going to the Help menu. You can also hover over any property in the inspector doc to read the corresponding documentation. This release adds the same feature to signals in the node doc and to the theme editor, so you don't have to search the documentation separately. You can now assign a color to folders in the file system doc, which makes it much easier to distinguish the various parts of your projects at a glance. To recolor a folder and its children, right-click on it and use the Set Color option. The color gradient editor has been redesigned, making creating and editing gradients easier. It has new snapping guides that help to place color stops precisely for particle effects. In the inspector, you now have fine control when making resources unique. Resources like 3D materials are shared by default, and often the fastest way to make a new material is to copy an existing one and make the copy unique. But you may want to share some subcomponents like gradients and noise textures. Now it's faster to do so. Godot has an editor to crop images non-destructively, which you can use to make tiling 9-patch textures. They are great for creating appealing panels in user interface. This editor has been reworked to have much better mouse interactions. The asset importer can now automatically remove the top directory and some imported assets and seamlessly import specific add-ons. Before, depending on how they were packaged, you would need to manually move add-on files after importing. Godot has a powerful visual shader programming tool. On top of being able to preview your shader's output at each step, anyone can create custom visual shader nodes to make the system even more powerful. For example, this great add-on by PattyEXE adds many time-saving shader functions. Godot 4.2 adds support for defining drop-down lists in these custom nodes. Finally, the C# compilation bottom panel got a redesign, making it easier to spot and troubleshoot compilation errors. In Godot, you can finally control the look of your user interface with the theme editor. There's constant work on making it more and more powerful. Changes in the theme editor now reflect in real time in the viewport, making it easier to preview changes. You can keep both the base theme preview in the bottom panel and your game's user interface visible at the same time, making it easier to see how well your theme works in different settings. This release adds the option to preview the project and editor theme on the fly in any scene, which saves a lot of time, and you can see how your plugin's interface will look without restarting the editor. Speaking of plugins, you can now access the editor interface from any plugin script. You don't need to pass it all around anymore, saving you time. Next up is the addition of keyboard focus and navigation on tabs, which can improve your app's accessibility. This also works in the Godot editor. This release also adds support for system-native file dialogues and for pasting image data from the system clipboard. Godot is really good for app development. It's used by the free Substance Designer alternative, Material Maker, and we used it for Learn GDScript from zero. It's only getting better. Godot supports 3 programming languages officially: GDScript, an accessible yet powerful gameplay scripting language, C#, a popular option in the games industry, and C++ for maximum control and performance. All 3 are here to stay, and they all got love in this release. If you use C#, you'll love to hear that Godot 4 now has experimental support for Android and iOS. The team chose to go with Microsoft's open source implementation of C#, .NET. However, iOS support was coming with .NET 8.0, which came out right before Godot 4.2. Yes, this does mean that Godot 4.2 also supports the latest version of Microsoft's C#. Check out the official documentation for more information on the current state of mobile support. Godot lets you mix multiple languages in a single project. This release improves interoperability between C# and GDScript by letting you call C# static methods and accessing read-only and write-only properties from GDScript. Godot has a unique technology that allows you to use compiled languages like C++ and the community-supported Rust without recompiling the engine. It's GDExtension. This update adds GDExtension support in the web browser, so you can use C++ code there more easily for high-performance algorithms. Until now, each time you changed the GDExtension in your project, you had to restart the editor to reload your changes. This is not the case anymore with GDExtension hot reloading. This makes game scripting with C++ a much more viable option. Moving on to GDScript, the language server got really important features. It now lets you find references, and it has improved renaming support, making it faster to navigate and refactor your code. This technology works with all kinds of external code editors, including Visual Studio Code and NeoVim. A major feature is that the debugger now has full support for threaded code. This means that when your GDScript code uses multi-threading, you can now step through and see exactly what's happening in individual threads. GDScript is a gradually typed language, meaning that you have the option to write simple dynamic code or to use type hints for better performance and error reporting. The typed side gets better with each release, and this time typing was added to for loops. You can write the type hint right after the iterator variable name to benefit from the improved performance and error checks. There is also newly added support for return type covariance in functions. It means that you can now return a subtype when overriding a function, making it more precise. For example, you might have a chest that can contain any item and a derived chest that can only hold and loot weapons. The language also got support for raw strings. If you've ever written a regular expression in GDScript, a pattern to search text, you had to double every / character. Raw strings do not have this issue. They make your regular expressions easier to read and write. To use them, just write the letter R before a string. GDScript is tightly embedded into Godot and the editor. And among other things, an amazing feature it gives you is the automated generation of documentation from your code. You can search the built-in code reference anytime by going to the Help menu. Any documentation strings you write in your GDScript files automatically get added to this built-in documentation. The docs generation got improved as it now supports the deprecated and experimental annotations, which are useful when working with larger teams or making plugins. These instantly inform people of which piece of code they should be careful with. When you make multiplayer games, you need to synchronize the state of all players. Godot 4 gives you an accessible multiplayer synchronizer node that takes care of that for you. It lets you pick exactly what properties get sent to the server and synced back. The replication bottom panel, where you set which properties to synchronize, got a redesign to make the options more intuitive. There's been substantial improvements on the mobile side of things. Android support got a rewrite that improves startup performance for Godot games and enables features like multiple windows on Android. Stylus pressure and tilt are also supported now, so you could use Godot to make drawing and 3D sculpting apps on Android. On iOS, you'll enjoy the one-click deploy to a device connected via USB, over Wi-Fi, or to a simulator. This also adds support for remote debugging, so you can use the debugger to pause the game's execution and step through your code while it's running on the device. Godot has great support for extended reality. The Foundation even has representation on the Kronos OpenXR working group thanks to Valve. From this release onward, Godot supports OpenXR extensions. They are extensions provided by specific hardware manufacturers for features that only some devices support. For example, the company Midjourney is working on Godot support for Meta's mixed reality, scene and spatial extensions. It helps you to map out where furniture and other surfaces are around you in mixed reality apps. Godot 4.2 supports the Tilt 5 and Pico 4 devices. Hardware manufacturers are working closer and closer with the team to ensure that Godot works with their products. There's an official XRTools add-on with lots of time-saving features for your projects, like virtual hands, input handling, and different ways to move around the virtual game world. This open library now offers tools for easier use of sound effects and improvements to physics interactions with the game world. There's also a new XR template to kickstart new projects quickly and save that much extra time. And this wraps up 4 months of Godot development. As you can see, no area was left untouched, and contributors are really keeping up the pace. What feature got you most excited? Let us know in the comments. For me, it's the video playback, UI theme, and plugin improvements, as a lot of work in our interactive Godot Tours tech taps into these features. We rely on this new tech in the 3rd module of our upcoming course, Learn Game Dev from Zero with Godot 4, releasing in early access starting January 30. We use it to give you a guided, interactive walk through the Godot editor. Step by step, you assemble the pieces of your first game and get familiar with the different docks and panels of the user interface. Godot Tours is one of several innovative education technologies we've developed this year to create a unique learning experience in our courses. Use coupon EARLYBIRD to pre-purchase your Godot 4 course now at 50% below launch price. The offer is valid until December 10 only, so feel free to share the video with someone else who could benefit from it. Subscribe to get more videos like these, and be sure to join our Discord community. It's a great place to give and get help from fellow Godot users. You'll find a link in the description.